Honourable members, earlier in the sitting, leave was granted under Standing Order 17.4 for debate on a definite matter of urgent public importance. I will now call on the member for Barataria Sanwan, and you have 20 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I would like to thank my colleagues in this honourable House for giving leave to raise a definite matter of urgent public importance, which is the urgent need for government to take immediate action to provide essential relief and assistance to communities which have been severely affected by the catastrophic flooding in the past week, which has caused significant destruction of property, displaced the safe living conditions, and hindered the daily lives of tens of thousands of citizens. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, before I begin my substantial contribution, I'd just like, on behalf of the United National Congress and the opposition of Trinidad and Tobago, express our grief and sorrow to all of those flood victims for the losses and distress that they have faced over the past week because of this flooding situation. And I was very happy and grateful that the opposition was given an opportunity to raise this matter as an urgent, definite matter of public importance. Because, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we have attempted in the past to use this particular standing order, and we are so happy that today leave was granted for us to raise this matter. Currently, Mr. Deputy Speaker, our country is drowning for the last few weeks, not only because of the flood, but because of unprecedented mismanagement and incompetence by this failing PNM government. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to speak on a few areas that have been affected by these flood waters, ranging from the constituency of Muruga Tableland, Gafur Trace, Glod Road, Ramlal Trace, my constituency of Barataria Sawa, the El Socorro South area, Abbas Avenue, Paragasing, El Socorro Extension, Temple Street, Chanka Street, Rangu, Hingu Settlement, Pari Lane, Rafik Hussein Trace, Patra Trace. We have floods hitting in Tabaquite, Bonaventure, Mamoral, Caroni Central, Sharp Road, Carson Field, Kuva North, Nizam Mohammed Street, Rajbali Street, Bank Village, Fairview Drive, Palm Avenue, Exchange Road, Oropuch West, Woodland, Pluck Road, San Francisco, Gaia Trace, Nazim Avenue, Sucha Trace, Rahamat Lane. In Naparima, we have Papari Road, Kunja, Lengua. In Mayaro, we have several destructions that took place there in the Mafican area. Kumoto Manzanilla, Plumitan, Beach, Charuma, Lemon, North Oropuch, Sangre, Chiquito, St. Augustine. They have been hit very hard in the Bamboo No. 2 area, Real Spring, Valsain, Spring Village, and St. Augustine South. Caroni East, El Carmen, St. Helena, Kelly Village, Warrenville, and Chinchin Road, Cunupia. And in the constituency of Saparia, there are several areas, Katwaru Trace, Diggity Trace, Mahadeo, Clark Road, Lachu, Sunrise, Ramlal, and the list goes on, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and our heart goes out to these citizens of Trinidad and Tobago who have been distressed. And as I said before, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this is not only because of unprecedented rainfall. This is because of unprecedented incompetence and mismanagement. Because, Mr. Deputy Speaker, when we raised this issue before in this very parliament, you would hear me complain, you would hear my friends from Oropuch, from all over, complain that the pumps are not working, the government is not cleaning the rivers, they are not maintaining the water courses and the drains. All of that, Mr. Deputy Speaker, caused what happened over the last weekend. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this government learned nothing from 2018, because had they learned anything from 2018, our citizens in Trinidad and Tobago will not be suffering. We would not have people marooned in their homes. We would not have children getting sick at home because of the stench of that stagnant, dirty flood water. You have to have ambulance, volunteers, getting people out of their homes so that they could seek medical attention, all because of the incompetence and mismanagement of this government when it comes to the Ministry of Works and Transport. And they will come to say it is rainfall. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I walk with the facts here today. I walked with the facts. Under the budgeting exercise, the Ministry of Works and Transport is responsible for maintaining the water courses. And under it, there's a line item called flood mitigation erosion. In 2022, they were allocated $29.9 million. Allowed to spend that, they spent $7 million. Under drainage and irrigation, Mr. Deputy Speaker, they were allocated $31 million. They spent $5.3 million. Major River Clearing Program 2022, they were allocated $12 million. The revised estimate was $1.5 million. Infrastructure Rehabilitation and Flood Mitigation Program, here this one, they were allocated $4 million and spent $800,000. Mr. Deputy Speaker, for the other program of upgrade to fix the existing drainage pumps and gate inventory, these are the flood pumps and the floodgates, they were allocated $15 million and spent $3 million. Shame, I call on this government, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Shame. While we hear that they spend hundreds of millions of dollars in legal fees, they can barely spend $1 million in flood mitigation programs to help our citizens in our constituencies. Mr. Deputy Speaker, then we saw what took place on Monday night where we have seen that this government has completely collapsed when it comes to disaster management. You had people in traffic for over 6 hours on Monday to get from work to home. Why? Because one lane of the southbound highway had water on it, had flood water, and the other 2 lanes you could walk through that water. And that caused an entire country to stop because they did not have a plan. 7 years you have been at the steering wheel and there is no plan. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, I am not surprised that the Prime Minister is missing from this particular debate, something that has been deemed as a matter of definite public importance. Not a single word did we hear from the Prime Minister with this flooding situation. Citizens in this country have had flood up until their chests. They have to leave their homes, lost all of their livelihood, their homes. And the Prime Minister says absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And he's absent from the chamber today because, Mr. Deputy Speaker, he simply does not care about the people in Trinidad and Tobago. And I apologize if I'm speaking very loudly, Mr. Deputy Speaker, but I'm very passionate about this issue. I have spent the last week with my constituents, and it is not easy hearing mothers cry because their children are getting sick because they are drinking water that has been contaminated by flooding. Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Second. Member, please. Those outbursts.
Deputy Speaker, we had to call the fire service to get elderly people out of their homes to seek medical attention. And up until now, the water has not receded. Mr. Deputy Speaker, my constituency has been a bit more unique in that this water, the flooding situation, has been here since last Wednesday before the torrential rainfall. I have a letter in my hand dated 23rd of November 2022, which was a Wednesday, that I sent to the Minister of Works and Transport, Mr. Rohan Sinanan. And he has not even acknowledged this letter, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Not even acknowledged it. I wrote on Monday to the Director of Drainage, Ms. Catherine Badlu-Dura, on the 28th of November 2022, asking for an urgent meeting on this matter, not an acknowledgement. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, would you learn this? That the drainage division is situated in El Socorro South, where it has been flooded. That is the area where the drainage division is, and my constituents are underwater, Mr. Deputy Speaker. That is the shame that we have, that this government faces. Mr. Deputy Speaker, then I saw that the PNM is advertising a rally on Sunday, business as usual. Don't be mobilizing CPEP workers to go and get a crowd on Sunday. Send those CPEP workers on the streets. Send them and people home to help them clean up. All those delegates you're registering for Sunday, send them with mop and broom in the constituencies to help clean up.
Member. Thank you, members. Right. So, again, thank you. Again, member for Batara San Juan, I've given you some leeway, but let's move on with the business at hand. Right? Let's go on with the business at hand.
Sure. All those PNM ministers who are delegates at that event, Mr. Deputy Speaker, should put on tall boots and go and clean out people's homes, because that is what you're getting paid for, to help the people of Trinidad and Tobago. To help the people of Trinidad and Tobago. But they will not feel it, Mr. Deputy Speaker, because they don't understand the hopelessness. Somebody sits in their home and sees flood water gushing through their door, and they can do nothing about it. Absolutely nothing. Mr. Deputy Speaker, that feeling of hopelessness and helplessness is something they will never feel, Mr. Deputy Speaker, because this government simply does not care about the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And after all of this catastrophe and all of this disaster, the Office of the Prime Minister will put out a Facebook post yesterday indicating that they will now allocate $150 million towards flood relief. $150 million. Mr. Deputy Speaker, $40 million will go towards flood relief program, $100 million will go towards landslip and road rehabilitation, and $10 million towards farmers. Not a single cent for flood prevention. Not a single cent for flood prevention. And then they're telling us you have to go and electronically apply for all of these grants. Mr. Deputy Speaker, people since 2020 are waiting for salary relief grant. Do you really think that the people who have faced disasters in this flooding disaster will get their grant? It is all a mama guy. It is mama guy. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this government really needs to come clean with the population, because people out there are suffering. I challenge them. Put on your boots, come in the areas and see what the people are experiencing. Mr. Deputy Speaker, 5 days of flood inside of your homes. 5 days. We have to take boats to take food into people's home because they cannot cook. Their kitchens are flooded. Their food stuff that they had has been completely destroyed. People have lost almost every single thing. And while this government, Mr. Deputy Speaker, has collapsed, I have to thank all of the hundreds of volunteers who have been helping. I thank all of the religious groups. I thank all those NGOs who have been providing meals and providing other cleaning supplies. I thank all of those persons on the field. And there's a particular group I would like to thank, Mr. Deputy Speaker, of young people who have really stood for their country. They have these modified 4x4 pickup, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And those are the ones who can access the particular areas where we could carry relief to the people. And do you know that the licensing department is giving those fellas or those people who have those trucks problems to get their vehicles certified? If it's not for those vehicles, we cannot go into the area to provide relief to those citizens. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this government really has failed the people of Trinidad and Tobago when it comes to flooding. On Sunday, I had to visit the constituency of the member for St. Joseph, where there are a lot of farmers in that particular area. And the farmers there, because of the flooding, Mr. Deputy Speaker, some of my constituents planted in that particular area, has said that they have lobbied the Ministry of Agriculture to help build the banks around the river, to help with giving them pumps to get the water out of the area. Mr. Deputy Speaker, when I learned of the estimated loss of hundreds of thousands of dollars of food that could have been feeding our citizens, lost because of flooding due to the mismanagement, the neglect, and the incompetence of this particular administration, Mr. Deputy Speaker, some of these damages could have been prevented, but the government simply did not do their job. And the Minister of Works and Transport can come after me and respond and say that they have done all that they have that they could do, that is because of climate change, it's because of unprecedented rainfall. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the budget books that they have provided to us with the figures that they have not spent the money, that equates to them doing absolutely no work. That is their documents. They provide that to us. So do not come and say that these are things that you have done, Mr. Deputy Speaker, because if you had done the necessary work, people today would not have been suffering like they are currently. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to say that the other areas, such as the DMU, such as the ODPM, I can give you one example of what took place in my constituency. Part of the DMU, their response was not up to par, Mr. Deputy Speaker. After the floods came, then they decided to share out sandbags in some of the areas. When the sandbags could not help anymore. The ODPM, I don't know if I have to draw a map to show them where El Socorro South is because they have not visited my particular constituency as yet, and many others of my colleagues that the ODPM has not arrived yet, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Then some of my constituents, before this particular debate, messaged me to let me know, and this happened across the board also, and I hope the Minister of Public Utilities respond, that they have cut off water in certain areas. So areas in which the floodwaters have receded, those residents now have problems with cleaning up simply because they do not have water. They do not have water to clean up. So what is the plan to really assist these persons who are affected with the cleanup exercise? Because that is going to be our next step going forward. That is going to be the next step forward. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this government, the ministers who to come after me,
we have 3 more minutes.
Thank you very much. They can come to say all that they like, Mr. Deputy Speaker, but the facts speak for themselves. The facts speak for themselves. And I want to say, the Minister of Works and Transport, who had primary responsibility for this issue, will blame everyone else. The Minister of National Security, who is always asleep, will not come on the field and see what is happening. And the ODPM falls under his particular ministry. And my colleague, the Minister of Local Government, he was not such a very good Attorney General, and it seems as though he's not very good at local government also. And I want to say before I leave here, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the only structure that we have to move is this PNM government out of office. Thank you very much.
I recognize the member for San Fernando West.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Thank you, sir. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I noted the contribution of the Honourable Member for Sawa Barataria. I welcome him to getting onto the field because I can testify that Minister Sinanan and I and our colleagues, Minister Gonzalez, the Minister of Communications as well, Minister Denobrega, each and every one, the member for Toko Sangre Grande, the member for Point Fortin, we've all been on the field, Mr. Deputy Speaker. So I was very happy to see the member for Barataria San Juan actually on the field as he is supposed to be as an MP. There were parts of the constituency of St. Augustine that I did not see the member for St. Augustine in, but I'm sure she must have been there. The fact is, each member has a responsibility. So let's deal with the motion before us. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the reality is that there is a system for management of disaster in circumstances such as this. It is largely located in local government. The government, as a matter of record, has engaged in dredging, in river and embankment works through the Ministry of Works and Transport. However, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I can testify in the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, immediately upon coming into office, carrying the baton from my colleague, Minister before me, the Honorable Senator Kazim Hosein, the first thing we did was to engage in the cleaning and meticulous management of waste collection right throughout every single one of the 14 municipal corporations. Mr. Deputy Speaker, it is for visual explanation to tell you, in the drainage areas alone, we collected 40 times the height of the Twin Towers. Take the Twin Towers, stack it up 40 times its height. That is the amount of refuse that we collected. We went into drains, we went into communities, we went into structures. But Mr. Deputy Speaker, it is local government engagement alongside Ministry of Agriculture, alongside Ministry of Works and Transport, that does the preparation for local government receiving what disaster can look like. Mr. Deputy Speaker, there's a lot of noise, quite respectfully.
Again, honorable members, again, we are here as a result of the urgent matter you all requested. So please, let's listen to the information on both sides. Right? Let's listen to the information.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, let me deal with the facts now. 11 out of the 14 regional corporations received significant effect as a result of the weather. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we were visited with something which is going to become constant. We were visited with, along the southern storm track, we were visited with 5 continuous days of rainfall. The Met Office has confirmed, and I will put this on the record, that the above normal rainfall that we received in November, 200% more rainfall, is, and I quote, record-breaking level of precipitation in Trinidad and Tobago, with this November being the wettest on record since 1946. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, there are events that happen. Take 2012, take 2014, take 2018, take any one of the years of significant event. We have had a significant event, and it did not take a hurricane or a tropical storm to see what we saw. Let's translate this for the people of the country through you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. 3 feet of rainfall fell in 4 days. And when communities, such as the many communities we have, be there locations including Woodlands in Pinaldebe, if it is looking at Bamboo number 1, number 2, number 3, South Valsain, inside of the catchment area that we're looking at, there are many communities, Mayaro, Manzanilla, that were affected by 3 feet of rainfall, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Carry that now where the community is 6 feet below road level. We saw 10 feet of water in some instances. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the member who for Barataria San Juan said that the government has collapsed and put this at the feet of the government. The honorable member is apparently unaware that the local government corporations are run 7 by the United National Congress and 7 by the People's National Movement. And therefore, the honorable member's condemnation is a condemnation of his own colleagues in local government. Take, for example, the Chaguanas Borough Corporation, which is sitting down or was sitting down on $7 million of unspent balances. $7 million of unspent balances. Is the member for Barataria San Juan condemning the mayor of Chaguanas, Faik Mohammed, for not engaging in cleaning and structures that the political leader, the member for Siparia, could easily call upon local government to do? Is the honorable member complaining about the Pinaldebe Regional Corporation?
Member, hold on one second. Member for Barataria San Juan, you had your opportunity. Please, not across the chamber, please.
Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Retract, please. And members, if you all want me to get more stern, I can. But please, it's an urgent matter, it's definite. Let's listen and learn.
The Deputy Speaker, in terms of the cause, let's be specific. We have, Mr. Deputy Speaker,
Mr. Deputy Speaker,
regional corporations.
Mr. Deputy
I'm
Speaker.
not.
Yeah, I stand on standing order 48-1 that he's misleading us with respect to
Okay.
the local.
Okay. Thank you, member. Thank you, member. Overruled. Proceed.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, when the Honourable Member for Barataria Sanwan says that everything has collapsed and there's failure, let me put it into context of what we're treating with in local government. When a regional corporation has responsibility for footpaths, for maintenance, for roads, for certain drains that lead into areas, is the Honourable Member saying that the United National Congress is going to bring litigation, perhaps, against their own councils? Because, Mr. Deputy Speaker, take an example of bamboo number 2.
Mr. Deputy
Where
Speaker, I stand
there
at
was-
48.6. I never said anything about litigation up till now in my 20-minute presentation.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, look at bamboo number 2, where we had significant flooding, where 3 incidents were pointed out that the Minister of Works and Transport investigated. Sluice Gate, a pathway where contractor passed over that went into repair works inside of the drains, i.e. they were cleaning the river and embankment areas, but more importantly, where local residents in bamboo number 2 cleared 80 feet of embankment, allowing for the ingress of water. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in those circumstances, is the Honourable Member saying that the United National Congress representative for the area holds the blame for taking no action? Surely the Honourable Member can't be suggesting that. Because, Mr. Deputy Speaker, when you analyze that our local government are the eyes and ears, our representatives are the eyes and ears of people, then the effect of Sawa Barataria's submission is to blame his own people. Look at bamboo number 2 alone as an example, where the councillor is a UNC councillor. You see, Mr. Deputy Speaker, if you accept the blame game in flood politics, then you are going nowhere. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I reject this submission that people have done nothing. The Honourable Member said that sandbags were given out after the fact. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as I stand here now, I can tell you 60,000 sandbags were deployed in the last 5 days. 60,000. It is, Mr. Deputy Speaker, an important thing to remember that the weather system that we are treating with is not confined only to flooding. If you look at the phenomenon that we experienced, there was massive occurrence of landslides. This is the first time, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that we were treating with North Coast in the positions. Mr. Deputy Speaker, 141 landslides alone. 126 flooding events alone, Mr. Deputy Speaker. 60,000 sandbags given out. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the disaster management units were on the field in full force. The Honourable Member says that no deployment happened. Let me say this today. Not only were the 14 disaster management units in full force, UNC disaster management control corporations or PNM control corporations, they were all out. Secondly, Mr. Deputy Speaker, would you know that in terms of relief operations yesterday alone, we had 110 CPEP workers out on the field in Mayaro, 90 in Bamboo. Today alone, 120 CPEP workers out in the Bamboo area alone. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we had 35 municipal police out on the ground, cleaning, mops, brooms, 10 of the instructors and 25 of the recruits. You know what the UNC posts have to say about that? That's security for ministers. Before there is a representation to say to the municipal police as volunteers under the coordination of the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, thank you for coming to engage in work, they choose to deprecate and create fake news. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in terms of expenditure, I think it prudent for the minister of Works and Transport in his calculation to put on record, as he will in a short while, that Works and Transport works alongside Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, alongside Ministry of Agriculture. Mr. Deputy Speaker, when we look at the consequences, we've had events, what is the plan? How do we treat with these events? Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'd like to tell you that we apparently have not paid attention to a very important publication coming from the Ministry of Public Utilities. The Ministry of Public Utilities put into the public domain on the 30th of November the publication from the World Meteorological Organization. And in that World Meteorological Organization publication, they have said to the world, the events which we have witnessed will continue till about February or March of next year, after which they expect significant drought in places that experience drought. So we are not out of the situation, and we expect and we are in preparation and active management of a new situation. So what can we do in terms of the look forward? Number one, we went in to ensure that the flooding was managed as best as we could. The fact is that the Caroni floodplain, the Oropouche floodplain, the Mayaro experience in Inner River floodplain, all of those were occupied with water. After that, the pumps were ensured of returning to operation. The Minister of Works and Transport put in auxiliary pumps as well. We are now at the stage of cleanup. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would like to say a personal thanks to the staff at the Ministry of Rural Development, the Permanent Secretary, in terms of arranging already for today the emergency relief centers for assessment of damages, particularly today in Mayaro, Rio Claro, Plum Mitan. We are looking at positions happening there. We are looking at 4 active areas, Mr. Deputy Speaker, where we have put out field tents to ensure that we are in the ground. Rail Spring, in Bamboo, in Woodlands, and in Mayaro, we have put out 4 emergency centers. And, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we have taken our municipal police and our CERT volunteers house to house to ensure that the communication of damage happens to the disaster management units. We then ensure that that goes to the Ministry of Social Development. We ensure that self-help comes in so that the government's money can reach the people affected. So we are not listening to the member for Sawa Barataria. We are out on the field in emergency situation, in field offices, in 4 hard-hit areas. The Minister of Social Development has already spoken to the access that can be had. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, what I can assure you is that the Disaster Management Unit team under Rural Development and Local Government, we will track the events to ensure that the right relief reaches the right hands. Mr. Deputy Speaker, what I can say is in the go forward this year, in addition to the cabinet monies which will come for disaster relief, Mr. Deputy Speaker, at Rural Development and Local Government, we have received $380-odd million extra in the public sector investment program. And the mission at the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government is to spend all of that money on the ground. That is a part of the rural development drive in local government. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, while we make sure that that money goes into maintenance, into drains, into footpaths, into all of the structures that we have to do in roads and rehabilitation, whilst we put that alongside $100 million in the secondary road repair company, alongside the rural development company, both of those engaged in roads and bridges, etc., many of the members opposite can speak to the relief that we have engaged with. The members can speak, Kuva North can speak, Chaguanas West can speak, Chaguanas East can speak to direct interactions with me and with my colleagues in ensuring that we get bridges and roads attended to. So while we have rural development company, secondary road development company, the corporations now with $386 million extra this year, alongside that, Ministry of Works and Transport, PURE, attending to all of these, the citizens of this country can look forward to that money hitting the ground. But Mr. Deputy Speaker, we seem to be on our own. Because the leader of the opposition is championing that local government reform must not happen. And worse yet, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that the life of the councils ought not to continue, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
48.1. What's the relevance of this in this motion?
Members, please. What's standing order, member?
One, Deputy Speaker. There's no relevance. This is an urgent matter that we're talking about flooding.
Again, honorable member, I'll give you some leeway. Just make your point quickly and move on. And as I'm on my feet, you have just about 3 minutes.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, the allegation coming is that local government has not engaged.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I stand on Standing Order 48.6. The leader of the opposition has at no point in time did what...
Thank you for the point. Okay. Thank you. Right. Proceed.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, they're uncomfortable because the truth is about to come out. The fact is, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that local government response to disaster in the context of this motion is materially encumbered by the United National Congress attempting to set aside the active sitting councillors right now, Mr. Deputy Speaker. They seek to injunct us. I won't go into sub judice, so I will end there. So whilst we are here on a matter of urgent public interest, definite interest, whilst the member for Barataria Sanwan stands on galleries as he is performing the duty that he is bound to perform alongside every member of parliament that is out in the field as we are, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we cannot look to salvation from the opposition because their simple position is to block, distract, and make sure that nothing happens, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
6. He is saying that the person on this side stand up on gallery. Right. The man is performing.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, flood politics is not to abuse the honorable people of this country, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Whilst the people of this country receive relief, the government will press on with its work. I commend each and every person in this country that is in...
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I stand on 48.4, that is insulting language, that is offensive language. If we are representing our burgesses who have been affected by the flood, if we are representing our constituents who are affected by the flood.
Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the mere fact that persons have to jump up because they're so uncomfortable means I have proved my case. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the government will continue to perform based upon facts. Our mission is to spend on the people of this country. We will not be interrupted by the honorable members opposite in their schemes to design to cause failure, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Thanks.
Mr. Deputy. Come on.
His time is up. Thank you very much.
Members, listen, Members, listen. I do not want you all to put me in this particular spot. But member for St. Augustine, if it is that we go in one left, one right, you would have missed the turn. Right? You would have missed the turn. Right? And I hope the Chief Whip can defend me if I decided to call the person on the other side. So member for St. Augustine, proceed. And members, let's be serious. You all requested an urgent, definite, and important matter, and if it has been approved, let's deal with the matter on the House. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. No, I need you in the booth. I need you in the booth. Everyone will speak from within the booth.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It was pellucidly clear that the Minister of Local Government was way over his head when it comes to flood prevention and disaster. A failed Attorney General is now a failing Minister of Local Government. And I want to advise you that visiting St. Augustine for 5 minutes and doing a whirlwind tour where you touch down and take photographs is not being on the field. Out of the kindness of my heart, I advised the Minister of Local Government when he took up this appointment that pocket squares
Silence. Go ahead.
I advised the Minister of Local Government when he took up this appointment that pocket squares doesn't fill potholes. And I will tell you today, I will say to you today that PR does not stop flood. I felt sorry for the member who spoke because he literally resorted to speaking rubbish, speaking about rubbish. The last time he attacked the member for Superior, I want to remind him that he was forced to apologize for telling untruth. The opposition is not opposed to local government election. I want you to get that clear and stop misleading the public. The minister was all over the place in this debate. You only had 20 minutes. The minister was unable to stick to the urgent matter of flooding because he has not done anything. He seemed totally incompetent in this debate and in real action. Incompetent and impotent. That is this government when it comes to flooding. Attacking the UNC corporations for unspent balances when all regional corporations have unspent balances. And you want to know why? It is because the Ministry of Local Government and the Ministry of Finance release monies late. In some cases, the day before the end of the financial year, and it is called suppressing the funding, and that is a deliberate undermining of local government. So don't come here to blame the regional corporation, blame the citizens. You are out of place to attempt to blame our hard-working UNC councillor, Ms. Seema Ramsaran, who is the councillor for Bamboo number 2, that falls under a PNM-led Tunapuna Piako Regional Corporation. So if you want to talk about blame, and don't blame the poor little councillor, ask the chairman of Tunapuna Piako what happened to the resources for Bamboo number 2. But, Mr. Chairman, I want to advise the minister and the government that the issues in Bamboo and other areas are not so much local government challenges, but squarely falls under the Drainage Division and the Ministry of Works. But maybe if the members of the government were not busy dancing at their mayor's balls, they would actually have some real preparation to do with their disaster management units. I could tell you that 1 month's rent from certain people on that side will clearly help many persons recover from this disaster. And I want to ask which member on the opposite side who collects rent will be the first to give 1 month, just 1 month's rent towards flood relief. Put your money where your mouth is. The flooding that we experienced didn't happen overnight. It was preventable. All these buzzwords that the minister used, and not one word about the 14 disaster management units that fall under local government. When the ODPM advertises a list of shelters and not one of them is stocked and staffed with even a bottle of water, you have failed miserably on the field to prevent flooding, and you failed miserably today to reply for only 20 minutes, only 20 minutes. This government is incompetent and impotent. I thank you.
I recognize the member for Tobago West.
East.
Tobago East. Member.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, there has been an all-of-government approach to treating with the the aftermath of the inclement weather. Tobago East.
Right, I recognize.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, thank you. As I was saying, Mr. Deputy Speaker, there has been an all-of-government approach to treating with the aftermath of the inclement weather that we would have experienced over the last few days, even the last month, and the effects on communities in Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Deputy Speaker, there is one factor that is often overlooked when we have natural disasters in our society, and that is dealing with the social aspect, the soft aspect of it. So while we have the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government and the Ministry of Works and Transport dealing with infrastructure issues, ensuring that we put measures in place to prevent flooding as well as to treat with the effects of flooding as they occur, we have the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services responding with that human side of it, ensuring that we reach out to families, ensuring that we reach out to those who are most vulnerable. But I also want to highlight something that was done by the Gender Affairs Division of the Office of the Prime Minister. On the 16th of November, in response to those women who find themselves in shelters or in spaces where they are vulnerable and they need additional feminine care, we would have reached out through the UN system and some of our partners to access what we call dignity pack or feminine care packages. And the Gender and Child Affairs Division on the 16th of November would have received the first batch of those, and we would have handed them over to the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government for distribution to women in affected communities, so that those women who unfortunately have to leave their homes and have to enter shelter, or even if they are in their homes because of the impact of flooding, need that additional support, would have access to feminine care packages. So that was done. Additionally, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to highlight the psychosocial support that is provided, because that is important. While we are dealing with the cleanup, while we're providing food, there's also that need to ensure that persons who may be dealing with it emotionally, having those stressors, get that additional support. So the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, through the National Family Services Division, would have ensured that they have a hotline in place to provide counseling services as well as social workers on the line and out in the communities, reaching those who are most affected, to help them to cope emotionally and help them to deal with the stressors. So in terms of persons who are out there who need the additional support and need that counseling support, I'm encouraging them to reach out through the hotline number 623-2608, and also for those persons, because they are in a very dangerous place and may be considering suicide because of the emotional impact, there is help available. I want them to please reach out to the toll-free hotline 800-COPE, that is 800-2673. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services would have received to date approximately 3,246 applications. Applications are being processed through the support of field officers on the ground who work alongside the disaster management unit. And I want the public to know some of the various grants that are available through the Ministry of Social Development. For household affected, there's up to $10,000 for those who require to provide stove, beds, etc. For students who have been impacted, primary school students, $700 per student is available. For secondary students, $1,000 per student. For those who need additional food support, there's a grant of up to $550 available as an emergency relief. For those persons who may need minor repairs to their homes, that is available, a grant of up to $20,000. For persons who need assistance with sanitary plumbing, there's also a grant of up to $15,000. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as I would have started, I want to end. The government is taking an all-of-government approach. We have the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, as well as the Ministry of Works and Transport, dealing with the physical infrastructure issues. We have the Ministry of Social Development attending to the needs of persons, their psychosocial needs, as well as their clothing needs, as well as their need for food, and in some instances, Mr. Deputy Speaker, they need for shelter with the rental assistance program. I want to encourage citizens to reach out. Also, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to take the opportunity to thank those in the UN system, particularly the UNFPA, for their assistance with the feminine care packages, what we call it dignity packages, because apart from the batch that we have distributed on the 16th of November, we received an additional batch yesterday, which will be distributed through some of our key NGOs, and we'll be ensuring that those agencies that work closely with women on the ground are able to distribute those packages to women in need in communities affected by flooding. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
I recognize the member for Siparia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I welcome this opportunity to speak in this debate, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And I'm very happy to see your good self in the chair today, having had this particular motion approved. So we want to thank the House for this opportunity to deal with the flooding issue.
All right. Thank you, MP for Siparia. And I think probably it's a good opportunity, seeing that it has been raised for the second time, because Barataria Sanwan also mentioned it. The matter is definite. The matter is important, the matter is urgent, and subject to the standing order, the chair will so rule. Proceed. No need to go down that road.
As I say, I welcome the opportunity to speak on this very definite, urgent matter of public importance, the widespread flooding. And in my own constituency, sir, if I may, I would say a large percentage of that constituency is flooded out, just as in other constituencies, Wilson Road, Julian Trace, Sumani Trace, Rushad Road, Sami Trace, Timor Trace, Satnarayan Trace, Pina Rock Road, Tilok Trace, July Trace, Mulchan Trace, Nagisar Trace, Goodman Branch Trace, Goodman Trace, Davidyal Trace, Napailau Trace, Ramlal Street, Sunrise Road, Lachus Road, Clark Road, Randari Branch, Ramdari Trace, Mahadev Trace, Dignity, and the list goes on, sir. And I am itemizing this for a particular reason. I know MP Saddam Hosein mentioned some of the other areas. And I do this because I find that we have not, it is my respectful view, that when the Minister of Local Government spoke, the Minister did not zero in on the meat of what this debate is about. And if I may remind us, it was about the urgent need for government to take immediate action to provide essential relief and assistance to communities which have been severely affected by flooding in the past week, which has caused significant destruction of property, displaced safe living conditions, and hindered the daily lives of tens of thousands of citizens. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but the minister did not pay any attention to what it is was under debate. The minister talked about rubbish and disposal and collecting rubbish, all rubbish in my respectful view, but nothing about what are the essential relief assistance that will be provided. Persons have lost their vehicles, appliances, food supplies, personal items. People have left their homes and cannot return because the water is still there. Then we have the threat to health and so on. None of this was addressed by the Honourable Minister for Local Government. Instead, the Minister chose to talk about unspent balances, trying to blame UNC corporations. My colleague MP Khadijah Ameen spoke a little about that, but there's a little more. There is a little more to that because the Minister is not recognizing the unspent balances when it comes with respect to flood mitigation, when it comes to drainage and irrigation, major river cleaning, fixing drainage pumps, gate inventory, and so on. MP Saddam Hussein spoke of these. So you will find for flood mitigation, erosion coastal program under the IDF, you see here 23 million unspent in flood mitigation, erosion coastal program. 23 million. They were allocated over 29, spent 7. When we go to the other item, drainage and irrigation, again, there was a 26 million unspent balance with respect to dealing with flooding, and continues in all these areas. MP Sinanan had brought it out. Now, MP from Tobago talked about the soft side and the social side and so on. But the first thing they had done was to close down all these regional social development offices, regional. And now you're asking people to go online to fill up a form when they don't even have a home to sit down in, when they don't have devices. So to tell us to go on the soft side sounds really good. At least the minister attempted to deal with, to provide relief, saying we will go on the soft side, the social development side. So tell us, before this debate ends, what it is that you're doing to provide essential relief and assistance throughout. Minister of Local Government speaks of bamboo number 2 and blames UNC corporations. Bamboo number 2 is in Tunapuna, a PNM corporation. Don't attempt to blame the UNC. So I want to thank you, sir. I think you're about to stop me, or is there time left?
Don't sleep me. You have 2 seconds.
2 seconds. I want to thank you very much. And again, I plead with government, tell us what are you going to do to provide essential relief to these flood-hit areas. I thank you.
I recognize the Minister of Works and Transport, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I take this opportunity to respond to this Honourable House on the matter raised by the Honourable Member on the urgent need for government to take immediate action to provide essential relief and assistance to communities which have been severely affected by catastrophic flooding in the past week, which has caused significant disruption of property, displaced the safe living conditions, and hindered the daily lives of tens of thousands of citizens. I want to highlight that word, catastrophic flooding. Mr. Speaker, I think today I would I think I hold a record for any minister to answer 11 questions in one day. But what was significant about one of these questions, I think it was question 11, raised by the member for Oropouche East, where and today has to be a very good day for the member. But today you said that the flooding is unprecedented. Now, I term that to be never precedented flooding, which I term to be never before in Trinidad and Tobago, and no record of that level of flooding. Mr. Deputy Speaker, without having to blame anyone, let us understand what we went through. We went through, a few days ago, 180% more rainfall than ever before in Trinidad and Tobago. By the end of this month, we would have had almost 200% more rainfall in Trinidad than we have ever had before. Our infrastructure is almost 60 or 70 years old. And even with the normal level of rainfall, our infrastructure...
With all relevance, I mean, 48-1. This motion is about what they're bringing to provide relief for the country, not rain.
Overruled.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, it's 5 minutes, and I wish I had 5 hours so I could complete it. But we have 5 minutes, so please don't interrupt as we go along. Mr. Speaker, the infrastructure in this country under normal circumstances would have been challenged. No part of the world, the infrastructure could cater for an increase of 200% more rainfall. This is what we are dealing with, and the members clearly understood that. That is why the motion was phrased in that way. This is unprecedented times. Mr. Speaker, at the Ministry of Works and Transport, I can tell you, what we have been doing, we have ensured that connectivity around the country have been restored. There's no part of this country that is cut off at this time. Coming out of what we went through, that is a significant achievement. The only areas where flooding still exists is areas that is...
One second.
Sure.
Members, this is the final speaker. You know, you all, listen, you hear every single thing at times, eh? Rest assured, Bartiara Sanmon. Rest assured. Proceed.
Injury time, please. Mr. Speaker, we have had the reduction in flooding within 2 days of no rainfall. The areas that are underwater now are the very low-lying areas where we normally will have some time before the runoff is there. what the ministry is doing right now, we have identified all the breaches on all the water courses, and immediate action is being taken to restore these river banks. As we speak, all our pumps are operational, so no part of this country is under any severe flooding where life is threatened in any way. Mr. Speaker, I can go on and talk about what we're going to do going forward, but I don't think I will have the time, because we have a national drainage plan that the ministry have already started to put boots on the ground projects out of that. However, rather than we sit here and we try to put blame on everyone for this level of flooding, we must look at what is happening around the world and see how parliaments are working together, how they are working together to restore a normal level around the country. Mr. Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to thank the people like Mr. Lal from Bamboo, right? Who would have done everything and all.
Members. Honorable member.
Wait 1 minute, please, Dan.
No, member for St. Augustine. Member for St. Augustine. Honorable member, your time has expired. Leader of the House.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that this House do now adjourn to Friday, the 9th of December, next week Friday, at 1:30 p.m. At that time, the government intends to debate the Finance Number 2 Bill 2022.
Honorable members, the question is that this House do now adjourn to Friday, 9th December 2022 at 1:30 p.m. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? I think the ayes have it. This House now stands adjourned to Friday, 9th December 2022 at 1:30 p.m.